this again. So yesterday I was on my Facebook page and some Nazi from Croatia posted something on there and went to go take a look at it and read what he posted. And he began to say things like, what we need is right-wing death squads. And right-wing death squads are the best death squads. So I knew that this guy was part of the whole alt-right crowd, so I thought, okay, let me go check out what this term, let me go search this term, right-wing death squads, because I've heard this term used before, and I was wondering if it was a term that's actually used by people on the internet, if it's some sort of term that is trending, and it's not something that he made up, because not the first time that I have heard this. So I googled the term right-wing death squads, and I began to find all of these videos on the internet of people talking about right-wing death squads, how we need right-wing death squads to kill the Jews, to kill those that we deem inferior. So, I mean, there's so many Nazis on the internet, it's unreal. There's so many of them, you can't even count. It's innumerable. And amazing times we're living in. There's so much of this going on the internet, and people act like it's some fringe group. And I think that this is a result of the media and movies and books portraying the Holocaust as though it's something of the past. And there's a term that people like to use in regards to the Holocaust, and that is never again. That it's never going to happen again, in other words. It's never going to happen again. The Holocaust won't occur, and we are past that. We are living in the 21st century in the era of Facebook and video games and iTunes and Apple computers, Twitter. So there's no way, with all of this influx of technology, there's no way that we are going to go into another Holocaust. There's no way that we would ever usher in a government like that of Hitler or that of Stalin or any other genocidal regime, because we are so past that right now. I mean, come on. Obama just passed gay marriage, and it's just, it's been constitutionalized, so, it's never going to happen again, Theodore. What are you talking about? Like, that's never going to happen, blah, 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 and all this bull crap. And it's amazing how the acceptance of homosexuality is seen as a indication of great progress, when in reality, the acceptance of homosexuality is really an indication of an acceptance of violence, of governmental tyranny, of decrepitness, our acceptance of tyranny, our acceptance of despotism. The acceptance of homosexuality is the acceptance of despotism, because homosexuality is really a sign of a nation, of a society going into the ways of Satan, completely imprisoned in the ways of Satan, completely imprisoned in the ways of death, of the diabolical. And therefore, it's an indication that a society is violent, that a society wants blood. Because you read about the SA, you read about all this stuff, these guys were sodomites. The Nazis, a lot of them were sodomites. A ton of them were sodomites. I think Hitler was a sodomite. So you have all these morons on the internet who are like, oh yeah, right-wing death squads, and no. And in reality, they're just a bunch of faggots. They're just a bunch of faggots, or they love faggotry, they love homosexuality, they support homosexuality, and they are no different than the SA of Ernest Bohem and all these old Nazis. So I found a video on YouTube, because I was searching through the internet, looking at these different videos that were talking about right-wing death squads and all that, different pages talking about it. And I found a video, and it's a music video, and it's done by a band called Blink 1488. Now, this is a parody off the old 90s band Blink 182. And what these guys do is they take songs that were made by Blink 182. They take the instrumentals of the song, and then they put their own lyrics on them. So they follow the rhythm, they follow the template of that style, and then they put in their own lyrics. And the lyrics are completely National Socialist, in support of Hitler. Not only that, I mean, you're talking about videos that call for genocide. These are videos that call for genocide. I'm going to show you guys one of the videos right now. And I'm telling you, it's amazing. You know, you have people on the internet talking about, oh, look at this nasheed, look at this Muslim song, look at what these Muslims are talking about. I'm like, look at what's happening in your own country. Look at the types of videos and the types of music that people are making in your own damn country. Calling for genocide, calling for Jews to be burned in the ovens, calling for death squads, massacring people, bloodshed, flooding the streets with blood, talking about recruiting people and training them and giving them guns. This is happening in your own damn country with this alt-right crap. So I'm going to show you guys this video. This is a sign. This is a sign of the rise of the alt-right in America. They feel empowered by a Trump victory. I'm not saying Trump is alt-right, but they take Trump and they're trying to make Trump into their own image. They're trying to make him as though he's their Messiah, when he really isn't. This is like when blacks looked up to Obama and said, oh, he's our Messiah, and he didn't give a crap about them. So it's really the same type of situation, except it's for these white supremacist types. And the thing is that these alt-right people, they feel empowered in America, and they are empowering those in Europe as well, right? Because they're like, Trump is our great Messiah. So there's this messianicism behind them. And then you have these people in Europe who are like, oh, yes, because to people in other countries, including Europe, America is God, right? So whatever America does, they want to do. I mean, believe me, I've been to Europe. I've seen how a lot of Europeans, especially young Europeans, see the U.S., they see America as God. It's the great mother. And they want to emulate whatever America does. So if America votes for Bush, they'll vote for a Bush. If America votes for Obama, they'll vote for an Obama. And it's the same thing. Trump wins, believe me, their Donald Trumps are going to win. And the European type populism is different from American populism. Because at least the foundation of America is not one of... it doesn't have the same roots as Europe. You know, America was a nation founded on the term e pluribus unum, you know, from many come one. From many come one. So the idea of America becoming a Nazi state is not really that possible. So it's not really the same exact thing. But nonetheless, they took Trump, they made him into their own image, and his victory is empowering these political groups in Europe. So I'm going to get more into that in a little bit. I want to play you guys this video. And here it is. No, let's do this again. Alright everyone, so here is the video. The name of the band is called Blink 1488. And I'm pretty sure this band is in the United States, because if you, in the bottom of the video, it says music by Right Wing Death Squad Entertainment. So this is the creator of the music. Is they call themselves Right Wing Death Squad Entertainment, and if you click on their page, it says from the United States. So it says their location is in the U.S. I'll take their word for it. So these are, I think, Americans making, I presume Americans making this video. And the term 1488, this is neo-Nazi code talk, and the number 14 represents the term, something to the likes of, we will protect our race and our children, or something like that. Well, anyway, if you actually read the actual term, the actual sentence, it's 14 words. So that's what the 14 stands for. You know, we, us, the white race, will protect our people, and we're proud of our people, and we will protect our children. Something, some bullcrap like that. I don't remember exactly. So then the number 88. It represents Heil Hitler, because 8 is, the letter H is the 8th letter of the alphabet. So Heil Hitler, 2 H's, H is the 8th letter of the alphabet, so 88. So it's has a whole significance in it, and it's just neo-Nazi code talk. So anyway, here is the video. I'm going to play it for you guys, and of course I'm going to give you guys my commentary as it goes. Notice, right at the beginning of the video, they're promoting eugenics. Where is it? There it is. Right here. If you look at that, that's a sign that says eugenics on it. Human evolution. So this is the result of decades of teenagers in America being brainwashed with evolutionism. More on that later. There it is again. You see it, the sign? Eugenics. And this is what is really fortifying their ideology. Listen, if it wasn't for the theory of evolution, there would be no Nazism. Because if everyone believed that God created humanity, God created all of us, He created whites, blacks, Asians, Middle Eastern people, Jews, whatever, then the idea of a supreme race would just, wouldn't make any sense to people. It just wouldn't be accepted. So if it wasn't for Darwin and the theory of evolution and all this crap, there would be no neo-Nazis. And isn't it amazing that for years they were laughing at us when we said, if you teach evolutionism, it's going to lead to Nazism. And they were laughing at us for this. They were saying, oh, no, there's no connection between evolutionism, Darwinism, and Nazism. That's just some crap that some crazy evangelicals made up, blah, blah, blah. And here you are. Here you have young people listening to this music, promoting eugenics, promoting Darwinism. This is the result of teaching evolution. And yet we talk about, oh, look at what the Muslim children are being taught. Look at what they're teaching your children here. Look at how they're indoctrinating your children. Look at what they're indoctrinating your children with. Darwinism, evolutionism, and this leads to Nazism, the acceptance of genocide, the acceptance of ethnic cleansing. It's just so sickening how people are so damn parasitical and indifferent in this society. You know, they want free stuff, but they don't mind having evolutionism and eugenics being taught. Oh, that's okay as long as it's science. Scientists are apparently gods in the modern secular society. Anyway, go on. We're enduring hours of that kind. Okay, so for those of you guys who don't know, kikes is a derogatory term for Jews. That's what this is. So it's like calling a black guy the N-word. You know, you call a Jew a kike. It's like the worst insult you can give him, or at least one of the worst insults you can give him. So it's a derogatory term for the Jews. And notice what this guy is saying. We're enduring the worst of the kikes, right? We're enduring the worst of the Jews. We're being so oppressed by the Jews. And I'm thinking, how? You know, this is the amazing thing about people in the modern age. And I'm sure it was this way in ancient times as well. But probably today, or probably in the modern era, it's a lot worse. Which is why I think the worst genocides happened in the modern era. The worst wars took place in the modern era. People, for some reason, in the modern era, there is a reason behind it, but people in the modern era, with them, everything is 5 minutes to midnight. Everything is, we got to get this guy or else we're all going to die. We got to do this or else we're all going to die. The Nazis played this trick. Hitler played this trick. You know, if you don't elect Hitler, we're all going to die. The Jews are going to kill us all. The retarded people, the people who are mentally handicapped, they're just going to ruin our society. Everything is going to ruin our society, and we are just completely miserable. And at the same time, you know, these same people have their iTunes and their Starbucks, and they're just enjoying their lives. They act like, oh, it's the worst, and everything is going bad, and we're about to be destroyed, and yada, yada, yada. And at the same time, you have your Apple computer. I mean, how did you make this video? You have an Apple computer, you have technology, you got your iPhone, you got your Starbucks, you got your nice restaurants. It's just absolute bullcrap. And these people, they'll sit there, you know, for hours bitching and complaining about how, oh, the Jews are ruining us because they're losers and they don't want to blame themselves, so they have to find someone else to blame it on. And they're going to sit there, oh, we're being destroyed by these people and that people and this people. And then after they go to a restaurant and sit down and eat and stuff their faces and talk bullcrap. It's absolute garbage, and it's just typical populist crap. And you see the same thing in Greece. You see the same thing in Greece. Oh, everybody is ruining us. The Italians, the same thing. Everyone is ruining us. We cannot go out to restaurants. We cannot go out on vacation. Blah, 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 blah. And they did this to themselves. They did this to themselves by taking all these loans. that they knew they couldn't afford because they wanted their yachts, they wanted their parties, they wanted their big houses and their stainless steel appliances. They wanted luxury. And so instead of blaming themselves on ruining their own societies, they have to blame other people. They have to blame Jews. They have to blame immigrants. But it's them that destroy their own societies. They are their worst enemy. And so instead of blaming themselves, they want to go out and kill people. They want to go out and kill all the Jews. And this is the nature of these evil people. Anyway. Again, listen, I don't want to, I know I keep pausing it, but I'm giving you my commentary. You know, the purpose of this video is not just to play a video so you can listen to music. I'm giving you my commentary so you can read between the lines. So that way the next time you see this kind of crap, you can know where these people are coming from and have an idea of their evil ideology and their evil intentions. So we're dying, right? How are you guys dying? Who's killing you? Who's putting the gun to your heads? Who? Let's see. You're contracepting yourselves, so you're not having as many children as everyone else. You're doing this to yourselves. Who's slaughtering you? Who's killing you? Oh yeah, when we're dying, man, this is so bad. We're just enduring the worst right now. And then they go and get their Starbucks and their Burger King and their McDonald's and they stuff their faces. And they have their Apple computers and their iMovie and you know they're going to the Netflix and they're living very comfortably. You know, it's like two theologians in a room and they're, oh yeah, you know, this theology and that theology, and they're arguing this, that, this, and that. They're arguing theology, and then they go to a nice restaurant, a 5-star restaurant, and bullcrap all day. And they have absolutely no connection with the theology that they're speaking of. That's a different subject, but it's just an example of this type of behavior. You know, they sit there and talk about, oh, we're dying, oh, they're killing us, oh, they're this, but they're living very comfortably. And yeah, and if you tell these people, listen. It's amazing. These same people are they're the same types that will tolerate fags. They'll have Nazis in their ranks, Nazi fags, and they say, oh yeah, we're dying. But yet they accept homosexuality, which is a danger to any nation. It's a danger to any body of people. That doesn't matter to them. This is how you know that they're full of shit. Bottom line. Your sons, they shake with so angry with their iPods. And we'll save your skin if you help me. So here I am marching. And here's the interesting thing about this music, and this is an observation that my father made, and it's also something that I was thinking of as well. If you listen to this music, I know that it's a parody, it's a ripoff of the 1990s punk type music, but nonetheless, if you actually listen to this music, it sounds, stylistically, it sounds no different than the evangelical church music that you would hear in a Sunday morning, or a Sunday afternoon, or Thursday night, or whatever whatever time you have your Bible study. And the evangelical Christians, they took the same style. They took the punk style from the 1990s, you know, Blink-182 and some whatever, and 98 Degrees or whatever, all the 90s style music. They took it and they made a whole market for it, you know, the evangelical music. And you hear it at the modern day churches all the time. And really, if you think about it, if you listen to this music and you do a little reading up on the roots of this music, it's really a form of mind control. It's a form of mind control and manipulation. And it just shows you that this style of music is actually demonic. It's evil. And so they use it in the churches. They're using it for the white supremacy now, the neo-Nazi movements. And believe it or not, in Europe, this type of music is very popular. And the neo-Nazis love this style. They use it all the time. You hear it in Germany. If you listen to the German neo-Nazi music, the Northern European neo-Nazi music, you will hear this style of being utilized. You will hear it. So they're taking the punk music and they're using it to promote National Socialism. And what's interesting and disturbing is that the same style is heard at church. The same style. So interesting observation. Something to think about. So let me arm you, right? Let me arm you. And if you look closely here, there is a monkey, and then the monkey is evolving to a human. So again, you see how evolution is it's really the ideology of this people. I don't want to say, oh, it's just a part of, no, it's the ideology. And all of the politics that surround it really stem from a social Darwinist construct and social Darwinist mindset. Train you. So obviously they want to recruit people. It's obvious. So bring back right-wing death squads. And this goes back to the term I was talking about in the beginning of this video. This is what they want. They want genocide. And again, am I saying that this is going to happen in the U.S.? No. I'm not going to say, oh, emphatically, yes, this is going to happen. It's a possibility. I mean, don't put anything past human beings. All right? There's nothing, as far as living creatures on this earth, there's nothing more evil than a human being, because the human being is the only creature that can become a vehicle for the demonic and to be used to propagate demonic ideas and to conduct satanic actions like genocide. So I wouldn't put it past any nation. I wouldn't put it past them that they would do such a thing like this. But am I going to emphatically say that America is going to become Nazi Germany? No, I'm not going to say that, because that would be, it just wouldn't be an educated prediction. But nonetheless, the alt-right groups in America are helping to empower, to a great extent, the alt-right groups in Europe, the neo-Nazi groups in Europe. Let's not forget, Europe was alt-right before it came to the U.S. So it really comes from Europe, obviously, because social Darwinism comes from Europe. Charles Darwin was English. Ernest Haeckel was German. Alfred Russel Wallace was from Scotland. These are the great pioneers of Darwinism from the 19th century. And in the 1980s, a lot of this neo-Nazi stuff became very popular in France, very popular throughout Europe, really. And now you have people in America who are promoting it. So I don't think America is going to become a Nazi nation. But what America is doing, what people within the American society are doing, is they're inculcating it into Europe. They're empowering it, is what I'm trying to say. They're giving it this reinvigoration. And with the election of Donald Trump and this misconstruing of the image of Trump as this great white nationalist leader, they are further emboldening the neo-Nazi groups in Europe, political organizations in Europe. You see it already with the AFD and the Golden Dawn, and you see it already with like the Freedom Party in the Netherlands. You see it with the Swedish Democrats. And so that's what concerns me. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, America is going to become a Nazi country. No, but what I am saying is that it's the people within the U.S. are going to help empower the Nazis in Europe. And I think that this is going to play a role in the reinvigoration of Nazism in Germany and really the takeover of National Socialism in that country. When they say commies, probably means Slavic people. Probably means commies in Eastern Europe, and of course, the Jews, because the Jews are known. A lot of them are known to be communists. So that's what that really means when you read between the lines.
If you help me, I'm so sick of kikes. I hate them. Let's start the ovens.
Start the ovens.
This time
for real. So right there, they are calling for the genocide of the Jews through the gas chambers and the ovens. And there's several points that I want to make about this. One thing is that it reminds me of the Turks. The Turkish people, they have collective denial of the Armenian genocide. And they butchered over 3 million people. This was the first genocide of the 20th century. And it was the genocide that inspired Adolf Hitler. So here you have this connection, ideological connection between the Ottomans and the Germans. And it's interesting, if you talk to people in Turkey about the Armenian genocide, they'll get really, really angry at you, or they'll say, oh, that's fabrication or whatever. And you will hear Turkish people say things like, there was no genocide, but I wish there was one. I wish it was real. Or I wish there would have been a genocide. Or I wish there had been a genocide. And you will hear Turks speak like this. So these people have the same mentality as these genocidal Muslims in Turkey. They say, oh, there was no gas chambers, but I wish there was gas chambers. And in the future, there's going to be real ones. And this is really part of the reintroduction of National Socialism and Nazism in the society. The first thing that they do is, in the reintroduction of Nazism, the first thing that they do is they say, all sides did bad in the Second World War. Americans did bad, Japs did bad, Germans did bad, English did bad, Russians did bad. This is how they begin. It begins incrementally. Satan doesn't just come up and say, okay, accept Nazism and let's just slaughter everybody. No, that's not how it works. It begins slow, begins incrementally. So they begin by saying all sides did bad. Germans did bad, Americans did bad, and they all did bad. And what that does is it desensitizes you to when people begin to talk about the genocide that the Germans committed. It desensitizes you to it. Because you look at it, and you simply say, oh, I don't care, all sides did bad. And what that does is it creates you into this neutral person. So you take no sides. You become this neutral individual. And when you become a neutral individual, at that point, that is when you are the most easily manipulated. That is when you are the most easily brainwashed. As they say, if you stand for everything, you stand for nothing. So you become neutral, and it's like your brain becomes a sponge, and you just absorb everything. Or as the saying goes, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. That's, I think, is more accurate to this situation. So the next thing that they do is they, after saying, oh, all sides did bad and all that, they will say things like, oh, it really wasn't 6 million. There were people that died, but it really wasn't 6 million. It was 1 million people. Or they'll say, oh, it's 100,000 people, or something like that. So then you begin to doubt the numbers, or you say things like, oh, most of those people died of typhoid, or the reason why the Jews starved wasn't because the Germans intentionally starved them. It was because the Germans didn't have enough food to give them, so they starved. And then they'll say things like, oh, the reason why Hitler killed Jews, even though he didn't kill 6 million, he did kill Jews, but he didn't really kill them because he hated Jewish people or because it was for some social Darwinistic cause. He really killed them because or he hated them or wanted to get rid of them because they owned the banks, and the banks were screwing people over, and blah, blah, blah. And you hear the same crap today. It's the same crap. The banks are ruining us. The EU banks are ruining us, even though they did this to themselves with their taking loans that they couldn't afford. So this is how it all begins. And then eventually you start sympathizing with Hitler. Hitler was right. And then you say, well, there wasn't any gas chambers, but I wish there had been gas chambers. And in the future, we're going to really kill the Jews because the Jews are screwing us over. And now one of the most common things said amongst the Nazis in Europe today and the Nazis in America is that, oh, the reason for the immigration crisis is because of a Jewish conspiracy, so we should just kill all the Jews. This is how they get people. And people are just so easily manipulated. It's unreal. Check this out. There you see eugenics. And again, I just want to say this again. I'm repeating my repetitions. Again, I want to say this again. I want to say that remember how people were laughing at us. Remember how people were laughing at Christians when they said, and when we said, that evolutionism leads to Nazism. Oh, no, no, there is no connection. This is just science. And here you have young people, because it's mostly young people listening to this music, and it's young people making this music. Here you have young people promoting Darwinism, eugenics, Nazism, because they believe in evolution. This is the result of decades of indoctrination, teaching Darwinism and evolution to people. And every time you tell people this is evil, this is demonic, it's going to lead to Nazism, the Nazis were evolutionists, Hitler was an evolutionist, they say, oh, that's not true. People are just scum. These people are just scum, and they sit there and act like, oh, it's just science. And they're like, oh, well, the scientists say it. Like the scientists are God all of a sudden. It's just sickening. And this is what you have in this type of society where science is the new religion. Scientism, Darwinism is the religion. There's no such thing as a secular country. We don't live in a secular country. Science is the religion. Oh, the scientists. Oh, the scientists say it. It's like you go into these museums and they show you a picture of an ape, and then they show you the successive pictures of how he evolved, and then there's arrows in between each picture. And you ask them, okay, who put those arrows? I want to know, what's the process? You just put these pictures together, and you try to make it look like as though it makes sense, and you ask, okay, explain, what's going on in those arrows? Oh, well, the scientists say it, so we're just going to accept it like it's holy gospel. Frickin' bastards, all of them. Now here's another one here. Generation Identitaire. I don't know how to pronounce the French, but this is a French neo-Nazi group in France. And they call themselves, I think it means Generation Identity, or Generation Identitarian, I believe it means. And the Identitarian movement is basically, it's neo-Nazi. Identitarianism is a new label that they're putting on Nazism. It's a fancy way of saying, oh, I'm a Nazi. Instead of just saying you're a Nazi, you just say, I'm identitarian. That way people don't freak out when you tell them. And I have a little bit of experience with these French identitarians. I remember I saw this group on the internet. It was called François Action, French Action. And I saw them on the internet, and I thought, oh, they look like traditional Catholic people. They are fighting for the traditions of France and the French identity and all these things. So I thought, okay, they seem like good people. I'm going to try to get an interview with one of their representatives. So I sent them a message through Facebook, and I said, I would like to do an interview with you guys. And they had this lady message me, and she said, what is the nature of the interview? And I said, oh, I just want to interview your organization for Shoebat.com. We're a Christian website. And immediately she said, oh, we are not a Christian organization. And you could sense this hatred for Christianity in this group. So I began to do research, a lot deeper research on this group to find out more about them and who they really are, more than just the cursory reading that I did on them priorly. And I'm pretty sure they're interconnected with this identitarianism stuff, because these guys look like Nazis. I mean, I'm looking at their photos on their Facebook page, this French Action group, and I'm like, these guys look like skins. They look like neo-Nazi. They look creepy. Their eyes, everything, they just look murderous. And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't want to work with these people, you know. And I found out that ideologically they are associated with this identitarianism garbage. So they were really Nazis. So then I find another group called Civitas. And I thought, oh, this group seems better. I'm not seeing any sort of Nazism. And they are promoting Catholic morality and Catholic traditionalism. So I thought, okay, this group looks sane. They don't look like they're skins. They don't look like they're Nazis. They say we are Catholic. They're not all secular, identitarianism, and all this crap. So I messaged them, and I said, I would like to do an interview with you guys. And they said, sure. And they sent me this guy. His name is Francois Xavier Perron. So I interviewed Mr. Perron, and it was a good interview. And I asked to do a second interview with them, and he said sure. So we did a second interview, and really interesting. I edited the interview. I posted it up on shoebat.com. Again, it was a good interview. At least, it sounded good. And I sent like I do with all my guests, when I interview them, when I get done with the interview, I send it to them. I said, okay, here's the interview. Good job. It was a lot of fun. So I sent Mr. Perron the interview, and then I sent also the interview to the Facebook page for Civitas. So the group knows that I did the interview. They never got back to me. Civitas never got back to me. Mr. Perron never got back to me. They did not respond to me. I waited 2-3 days, didn't get a response. So I became kind of suspicious, because it's awkward and it's improper for someone to not respond back to you after you've done an interview with them and you've sent them the recording of the interview. And I began to do a little bit of an investigation on them. And again, I couldn't find anything Nazi about them. I didn't see them screaming Heil Hitler or anything like that. But I began to do research on their leader, Alain Escada, I believe his name is. And I began to do research on this guy, and I found a video of him praising the SS. So I realized at that moment they're also Nazi. And their members may not be not all Nazi. Not all their members may be Nazi, but their leader most definitely is SS. So I think that explains why they never got back to me. I think the guys up there, the higher-ups up there, thought, oh, this Theodore guy's actually a real Catholic, and we just want to associate with people who are part of this ideology of identitarianism and all this crap. And also, Alain Escada is a Holocaust denier. So the whole thing is Nazi. So it's like every group, it's like every conservative group in France is a Nazi group. It seems that way. And it's very sad. So the falling away is here. And you have these groups that claim to be Christian, and in reality they're all freaking Nazis. So that's my little experience with these French identitarians, and they're disgusting people, and I want nothing to do with them. It's very, very dark. The whole thing is dark. The whole thing is dark. We're enduring the worst. Oh yeah, we're really suffering. Bring out the Starbucks. Bring out the double cheeseburgers. Yeah, so you guys get the picture. The song is almost over, so you guys get the picture. He just repeats the same crap. Bring the death squads, genocide, slaughtering people. And really, this is the end result of racialist populism. And you know what's disturbing is that this video was uploaded at around June of this year. So it's been up there for a number of months already, and YouTube hasn't even taken it down. It's a video that promotes genocide, it promotes right-wing death squads to go out and slaughter people. It advocates and exhorts the building of ovens to burn people in. And YouTube takes down my videos simply because I said I believe in the death penalty for homosexuals. Yet these people are advocating for right-wing death squads. The video is not even taken down. And I remember YouTube took down one of my videos. It was the video of me confronting the sodomite priest, Michael Yarborough. You know what YouTube told me? YouTube told me, oh, we're taking this video down because we do not allow any videos that promote bullying, because I was confronting a predator, a deviant sexual predator. And here's a video advocating for genocide. YouTube does nothing. It makes you wonder, what is the purpose behind YouTube? And YouTube, it's quite conspicuous to me, is a tool being used by the elites by which to accelerate a third world war. That's what they want. They want a world war. And so they are using YouTube, because YouTube right now is the most popular media venue in the world. I mean, it's more popular than CNN, Fox News, all of them. There are more people going to YouTube than watching some fag behind a camera, like Anderson Cooper and all those wackos. And you can have a guy like Anderson Cooper or whoever, some radio or some news anchor man, or Megyn Kelly, and yeah, they have a lot of views and they're popular and all that. But yet, you have people on YouTube who have more viewers than them. So YouTube is the dominant media outlet right now. And it is being used to change the political climates of entire nations. If you look at the AFD didn't really use the mainstream media in Europe to promote their party. It used the internet. And it was really the alt-right in Europe on the internet that utilized the web to promote the political party, to promote populism. And this is really the way of the future. It's already the future. It's already here. So YouTube doesn't even take this thing down because they want Nazism to be promoted. They want this crap to be promoted. They want the promotion of genocide. They want the promotion of ovens, and that's redo the Holocaust. You have so much of this Nazi crap on the internet. It's unreal. So much of it. You can't even count all of it. And it's really, really disturbing how human beings are. I mean, you had the First World War. That brought destruction, death. Countless lives were lost. Over 100 million people died in the First World War. You look at the Second World War, the same thing. 100 million people died. So 200 million people die in this great world war. If you ever study the First and Second World Wars, they really were just one big war. I mean, people tend to separate them, but they really were just one singular conflict with a temporary peace in between two durations of the conflict. But nonetheless, it's all just one conflict. And people say, well, the war didn't end until 1945. And if you study what a lot of historians say, it really didn't end until like 1994. The Second World War didn't end until the last Russian soldier left East Germany. So the conflict ended very, very recently. I was 4 years old when the Second World War ended, technically. It didn't just end with the vanishing of Hitler. Some say he committed suicide. Some people say he went to Argentina. Who knows? But it didn't end with Hitler. It ended with the Russians leaving East Germany. Anyway, that's a different subject. So all this destruction was caused by causing these wars. And these wars were caused by ideology. They were caused by ideology. I know a lot of people like to they like to attribute the war to financial, economic reasons, but it really came down to supremacist ideology. There's a book, and I've talked about this book before, but I really, really recommend it, Europe's Last Summer by David Fromkin. And David Fromkin is a professor in the University of Boston, I believe. And very educated guy, very, very enlightening book, very edifying and educational book. You will learn a lot by reading this. And the whole book is about why did the First World War begin. And he's giving you all the reasons, and he's giving you all the reasons that Germany gave as a pretense to start the war. So the Germans said, oh, the Russians are being aggressive. The Russian aggression is the reason why we must increase our military industrialization. And so that's why we're going to start a war. And also they said that Great Britain was increasing its Royal Navy, it was advancing its Royal Navy, the technology of its Navy, it was making new battleships and all that. So that's why we had to start a war, because we needed to do a preemptive strike to defend Great Deutschland. So he gives you all the reasons the Germans gave. And he shows with new evidence that just recently was discovered that the Germans really made up all these reasons. And that if Germany never really invaded Belgium, because the war commences when Germany invades Belgium in order to get into France, because Belgium and France, they border right at each other. So their plan, in accordance to I believe it was called the Schlieffen Plan, that was actually, it was actually devised and contrived before the First World War even began. The Germans were already discussing how they were going to invade France, which really proves that the Germans, they already wanted to start a war, and they were just using Russia's military advancement or Great Britain's military advancement as a reason to start a war. They actually wanted to, no matter what the other side was doing. So, it gives you all these reasons, and He talks about how the Germans he talks about how when the Germans invaded France through Belgium and all that, and then he gets into in the end of the book he gets into um, what was the real reason why the Germans did it. And the most beautiful part of the book is near the end when he tells you what was the real reason why the Germans started the First World War. Why did they invade Belgium? Why did they want to invade France and all that? And he concludes there really was no logical reason to start a war. And he concludes that, based on all the evidence, the historical data, that if Germany never invaded Belgium to get into France, there would have been no war. And so he says, why did they start the war? What was the reason? Because obviously the Russians didn't want war, the British didn't want war, the French didn't want war, so why start a war? And he concludes there was no logical reason, and the only motivation was ideology. The only motivation was supremacist ideology to fulfill this apocalyptic envisioning of a war between the Teutonic races and the Slavic races, and that the Germans would be the victors in this great war, this great racial conflict. And by being the victors, they would ultimately be the masters of the earth. So it was ideology. It was ideology. It was ideological. It was apocalyptic. And it's very interesting because it's so refreshing to see an historian say this as opposed to this nonsense that you see all over the internet. All was started for economic reasons, and it was started for financial reasons, and everything is reduced to money. But no, it was about ideology. So the people today are no different. They don't give a crap about how many lives get lost. I mean, 200 million people died in the First and Second World Wars. That means nothing to these people. They want to start another world war. 1 billion people could die. 2 billion people could die. All the world could die with them and their little circles left. And that's all that would matter to them, that they would have power. So they don't even give a crap about that. And it makes you wonder, people just never learn. People just never learn. They're like snails. Right now in my garden, for the first time ever, I have problems with snails. I've never had problems with snails before. And the snails come in and they eat all your vegetables. They eat all your little seedlings. So I began to do research on a way to get rid of the snails. So I found out that you can use beer. You take a bowl, you pour beer, you leave the bowl outside, you come the next morning, and the entire bowl is filled up with dead snails. Well, how do the snails die? What is it about beer that kills the snail? Well, it's not really the beer unto itself that kills the snail. It's the absolute insatiable desire by the snail to drink the alcohol. So the snail smells the yeast. That's what attracts them. So they come to the bowl and they begin to drink the alcohol. They love the taste of alcohol. And if you watch the snail, you will see the snail dip its little mouth into the liquid and begin to suck up the alcohol. And they're enjoying it. And then the snail becomes drunk. And it loses its balance and it slides into the beer and it drowns. That's how it kills the snails. And what's interesting is, and I observed this myself, you will see all these dead snails in the bowl, and then more snails are coming in, and they're drinking from the alcohol. And it's like they don't even care that their friends just drowned by making the same mistake. They just lose their minds. They're so desirous of alcohol that it doesn't matter that their snails died. And if you think about it, you can look at it and laugh and say, oh, look at these stupid snails. They're just mindless little animals. But human beings are no different. In fact, human beings are worse. Human beings are worse. They will read history, read about past wars, how Germany lost in the First World War, Germany lost again in the Second World War. And yet they want to start the whole thing all over again. And this is the problem with racialist populism. And yesterday, after watching this video, I began to wonder and to observe and to reflect on this. And a thought came to my mind. When you look at the story in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, of the Pharaoh who enslaved the Hebrews, what was the cause of the enslavement of the Hebrews and the tormenting of the Hebrews? It was populism. It was racialist populism. The Hebrews went to Egypt. And why did they go to Egypt? Well, the Hebrews were people who came from Canaan. So they came from Canaan and they went into Egypt because they were starving. There was a famine in the land. So the Hebrews go into Egypt because they want food, and the Pharaoh at that time graciously allows them to live in Egypt, and he even gives them a little section of the country for them to live. So he was very gracious and very kind and hospitable, which is why God honored the Egyptian. That's why later on he says, when the Egyptian comes to your land, honor him because he allowed you into his country. So the Hebrews were like refugees to a certain extent, if I can use the term loosely. They were starving, they were hungry, they came into Egypt, and Egypt was a prosperous country. So they were living in Egypt, and they began to multiply and multiply and multiply, and the pagans of the land, the Egyptians, began to complain. These people are overtaking us, they're swallowing us up, when no such thing was happening. Oh, we're going to be annihilated. They were not going to be annihilated. Oh, the Hebrews are going to kill us all. They weren't going to kill you. But they believed that. And according to Josephus, and I believe this story because those Hebrew historians, those Pharisees, they didn't mess around with tradition. And he says in his history of the Hebrew people that there was a pagan priest who saw, I believe, the Pharaoh, and he said, you need to kill Moses, the little baby child. He didn't call him Moses, but he looked at the baby Moses and he said, that child will be the ruin of our race, of our people. And they didn't listen to the priest, but he wanted to murder Moses. He wanted to kill Moses. It was like Herod. Herod wanted to kill the baby Jesus. And so the people really believed that the Hebrews were going to be the death of them. So they took all the firstborn males of the Hebrews and they slaughtered all of them. And then they enslaved the entire population. And God hated this. And he cursed them with plagues and famine. Not famine, but he cursed them with, well, in a way, yeah, famine, because he made their Nile River into blood. They couldn't drink it. Gave them all these locusts. The locusts would destroy their crops, frogs, boils. It was just horrific. And they absolutely deserved it because they were evil. It's interesting. There is a hieroglyph that was discovered years ago by archaeologists. And it shows you, this hieroglyph that I'm about to explain to you, it shows you how evil the Egyptians were. They weren't just taking people and making them make bricks. The Bible doesn't give you the whole story. And you have to study history to get more information. There's a hieroglyph that was discovered in some pyramid somewhere, I don't remember. And it shows a picture of an Egyptian man. I believe he's an Egyptian warrior, and he has a net. And he has like fish, I think a chicken and a duck, and he has human beings. And on the hieroglyph it says, we eat the flesh of these people for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they would actually take slaves, be they Hebrews, Canaanite, Bedouins, etc., and they would eat them. And I think what it was is it was a holiday. It was a ritual that they did every year, in which the Pharaoh, and I believe people of the royalty within his circle, would come together and they would take several slaves, more than one, and eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they would eat people. And there were hunting expeditions. I mean, the Pharaoh would go out into the Cushite area, into the area south of Egypt, and just hunt people down like animals and take them in for slaves. And then I would assume that those people, a number of them, were cannibalized. So when the Bible says that the Pharaoh tormented the Hebrews, I think it was more than just whips and making bricks. I think there was cannibalism going on. But this is the result of racialism. The Egyptians believed that they were this superior people because their Pharaoh was a god. And anytime you get into paganism, you get into this. Anytime, there's no exceptions. Anytime you get into paganism, you get into racialism. It's impossible to avoid. Christianity comes in and says there's neither Jew, nor Gentile, nor Greek, nor barbarian, nor Scythian. We are all one in Jesus Christ. And it says that all races are created by God, all of them. And we all come from the same first mother and father, Adam and Eve. So we're all equal. There's no, oh, this race is better than this other race. Once you take that away, once you say, no, God didn't create us, we were not really created at all, we were just formed by nature, then you get into racialism. So if you throw out Christianity and you say, I want to get into the religion of my race. Yeah, I don't want to be a Christian, I don't want to be a Catholic, I want to get into the religion of my race. You will get into racialism. Because if you follow the religion of your race, pre-Christian religion, and you believe that your gods come from your race, then you will believe that your race is divine, and therefore you will believe that your race is superior. You see this with the Afrocentrist religionists, people who say, oh, let's worship Osiris, and then they believe that the African race is superior because they come from these gods. You see this with the Mexican La Raza people who come up and say, oh, I'm not a Catholic, I'm going to worship Tonatiuh, and the Aztec race came from these divine beings. And you see this perfect example in Japan. This is a living example. This is an example of people who've been doing this for thousands of years, not of people who left the Catholic Church and then wanted to become neo-pagan. No, these people have been doing it for thousands of years. They're Shintoists. They follow the Shinto religion. And the Japanese, they believe that the Japanese race comes from the gods. They worship their emperors, and they believe that all the emperors come from the line of, I believe his name is Jinmu, and the great god Jinmu, he sprung from the womb of Amaterasu. And the Japanese people believe that their race came from the womb of Amaterasu. In fact, in 2010, and believe it or not, I didn't see any English-speaking media talking about this. I wrote about it for Shoebat.com. I didn't see any English-speaking media covering the story. I was absolutely amazed by this. But at around 2010, they had a conference in Japan, in a big stadium. And it was like 10,000 people showed up. I mean, thousands of people showed up. A lot of people showed up. And there was over, I think, maybe 100 or so politicians present in this conference. And the entire conference was about reviving emperor worship in Japan. And there were people in the speaking circuit in this conference. Politicians, thinkers in Japan, intellectuals, elitists, intelligentsia, getting up there talking about how the race of Japan is divine. The Japanese race is divine because we come from the gods. So, like I said, anytime you get into paganism, you will always get into racialism in some form or another. In some form or another, oh, the European race came from Odin and all this nonsense, and therefore the European race is superior, the European race is divine. It's sickening, but it's a sad reality, and people just, they don't know what hell we're heading to. We are heading towards hell on earth, because the war that we're going to have to experience is going to be tremendously worse than the wars of our grandparents and our great-grandparents. I've had relatives who fought in the First World War. My great-grandparents, my great-grandfather from my Middle Eastern side, in fact, fought in the First World War, but he was fighting on the Ottoman side against the British. And then I believe my grandmother's uncle fought in the First World War as an American soldier against the Germans. And I remember asking my grandmother, Grandma, was he a guy who was in the military but he never saw combat? And she said, no, he was in combat. He was fighting in the trenches. So our grandparents, our great-grandparents experienced it, but us with our iPhones and our headphones and all that, our Starbucks, we're just so stuck up on this stuff. We don't give a crap. All we care about is our own comfort. We're like the snails. And then you have these other people coming in and saying, oh, let's go to war, let's push it. And it's amazing how easily manipulated people are. I mean, this all begins with 9/11. If the world exists after the war, if it manages to survive, which I believe it will, with the grace of God, history books will write on how the war began, and they will link it in one way to another with 9/11. Because it really begins with 9/11. It actually, ultimately, at the root of it all, it begins with the CIA planning on getting rid of all of the Soviet-influenced dictators in the Middle East, Gaddafi, the Assads, Saddam. I mean, they were planning on getting rid of these regimes in the 80s. So they wanted to do this a long time ago. They were just looking for that excuse. 9/11 comes. They get rid of Saddam. Getting rid of Saddam allowed ISIS to take over Iraq. The ISIS violence, all the bloodshed that was being done in Iraq, the civil war in Syria, that led to refugees going to Europe. So that led to the refugee crisis. The refugee crisis led to refugee violence. Refugee violence is now leading to societal instability in Europe. And societal instability is going to lead to the fragmentation of Europe. Fragmentation of Europe is going to lead to ultranationalism, and that is going to lead to war. And that's it. I can talk about this subject for hours, but I've think I've talked long enough. Hope you guys have enjoyed this message. Hope you guys have learned something from this message. You just heard some theology. God bless, and God be with us.